Trevor LaForte, welcome to the BeCause in Effect podcast. Great to have you here.
Oh, it's fantastic to be here, Noel. And we've had a couple of discussions over the years, and I'm always really happy to speak with the foundation.
Awesome. Well, as the Executive Director of WASAC, the Winnipeg Aboriginal Sport Achievement Center, how long have you been doing that? First of all, I was kind of looking online. I couldn't find your tenure. So how long has that been for you?
I started working there full-time in 2009 as the finance manager. WASAC's been around since 1999. And when they were a little bit smaller and they didn't have full staff, I did some consulting work on their financial end because most of the stuff they were doing was programmers and kids. I came on in 2011 as executive director after my predecessor, Kevin Chief, went on to work in politics.
Very cool. So I guess you just passed your 10 years or you're at your 10 years now?
I guess so, yeah.
Congratulations.
It doesn't seem like that, but yeah, it's been 10 years or 12 years of working at WASAC full time, and they're the best years of my life. I cannot imagine of having a better place and family to be a part of.
Well, it's such a cool organization and such a great mission. But maybe for people outside of Winnipeg or people who haven't heard of WASAC, give me the breakdown of what you guys are all about and what you do.
Okay, yeah. So I mentioned earlier, WASAC started in 1999. And I think we started out with 2 leaders and we had 30 youth that took part in our programs. Now, in the past year before COVID, we employ annually about 115 leaders, the bulk of which are Indigenous. And we run programming for Indigenous youth across Manitoba, to about 5,000 kids. And the bulk of those are Indigenous as well. So we've grown leaps and bounds from our initial years. And it seems like there's always something new and exciting going on. And we're just kind of branching out. But the coolest thing about WASAC is our legacy. It's not in the programming we do. It's the amount of how many great leaders we've had that have worked for the organization through the years, and the things that they've gone on to do either at WASAC or in their lives after it.
I'm assuming part of it, since you've been going for so long, a lot of the kids who maybe come through the program become leaders and get involved with the program like that. What's that pipeline like, and how does that all work?
It's exactly as you described. I always call it climbing the ladder. So we have kids. Our summer camp programs start for kids age 7. So what happens frequently is kids come to camp at 7. They go there for 5 or 6 years till they're 13, 14. And then they become junior leaders. And what we have is a program called the Youth Achievement Program, where we develop them into becoming youth leaders. It's their first jobs in many cases. They're learning all sorts of different things about being a responsible worker, time management, all that sort of fun stuff that you don't really know when you're young. Then after that, they kind of graduate on to becoming junior camp leaders at our summer camp. And they're usually there for a couple of years, and they become senior camp leaders. So one of the cool things I was mentioning, there's always something that's evolving at WASAC, is we found we were having a problem because the kids weren't moving on after they became senior leaders. They weren't kind of moving on because there was nothing else after that. So we decided to develop a program in partnership with the Business Council of Manitoba called the UCO program, where kids, our senior leaders from our programs, would go intern at some of the biggest companies in Winnipeg and Manitoba. So that allowed us to kind of open those floodgates, because when you had everybody staying as senior leaders, it stopped that sort of flow that you had, and it was tougher, because it's tough to say goodbye. But we knew that those youth were fully capable of doing anything, and we knew that the reason why they were fearful of going is because they had always been a part of the WASAC family. So allowing us to work and partner with those great organizations allowed them to continue to be part of the family. And then they also would bring that knowledge back from those organizations to speak to the current WASAC workers, to show them that they too are capable of doing these great things.
That's so rad. That's such a cool, and having been there for 12 years now, you've probably seen some of these 7-year-olds who are now 20 and getting into the world. What's that like for you when you see some of these kids literally growing in front of your eyes and becoming little adults?
It really is crazy. we were talking earlier before we went on screen about how COVID has messed up timing. But when you think back of that, that really just messes up your time. And you're sitting there and you're like, I still think I'm a fairly young man. The number on the birth certificate says otherwise, but you look at some of these kids and you see them at 8, 9, 10 years old, and now they're in university and graduating university and going on to careers and starting families and doing all that extra stuff. I mentioned, I don't know if I mentioned it on camera, but during this COVID thing, we've had to look at things a little bit differently, like everyone else has. And one of the things that we've really put our efforts into is developing a WASAC alumni association. Because like I said, we have so many great leaders that have come through the organization. And in speaking to the members, to so many different members that have gone through WASAC, and they hear what they're doing and how they want to come back and be able to pass on their experience and their knowledge to the youth, it's just fantastic. So that's one of the unintended benefits, I guess, or not a benefit, unintended circumstance from dealing with COVID is we were able to kind of get to some things that were kind of on the back burner. So right. The Alumni Association, and coming up on 25-year anniversary in a couple of years, just you look back more and more as you get older about some of the things that you've done and you can be really proud of. And so, like I said earlier, the thing that we're most proud about at WASAC is not our programming. It's the amount of youth leaders that have come and developed and been great mentors to the youth behind them.
For sure. That was going to be my next question, was talking about COVID. So maybe like take me back about a year. We were talking about when the NBA first suspended play, and that was kind of when people were like, oh, this is a real big deal here. So bring me back. What did you think was going to be the case? How did that end up being different than what you guys maybe initially had planned? And just kind of walk me through your COVID experience at WASAC.
Well, first of all, what we wanted to do immediately, like I mentioned that that night the NBA shut down. The next morning, what we did immediately, we talked about it on a staff and a board level, was get the people home safe. There's no need to be risking this. We put a halt on programming. We were coming up on spring break in a couple weeks anyways, and we typically tend to shut down the office that time because most of our programs are run in school. So it allowed us a couple weeks grace to kind of get a feel for what was going on. Still, we didn't really know what was going on. We were very fearful of funding situations. Thankfully, the Winnipeg Foundation did come through for a lot of different groups, us being one of them. We were lucky enough to qualify for a stabilization grant. That was our big fear in the first initial months, was how did this affect our funding, whether it be from corporate, government, or any other sort of sponsors. So we did a lot of work, and there was a lot of nail biting about how everything was, because everybody's kind of flying by the seat of their pants. But once we started to get more familiarized, we realized, in speaking with many of the youth that we work with, is that they were missing that sense of connection. They were worried about were we having summer employment for them, because they were looking at having to raise funds for going to university or whatever it was. And so our biggest goal after we started to get the funding aspect kind of cleared away was to make sure that we ran as a full on of our programs as we could safely. So normally we have a camp that runs 8 weeks in the summer, and we have 250 kids at one location at the Old X in north end of Winnipeg. But this year we couldn't get 250 kids together because of the restrictions. So what we ended up doing was we had 10 satellite camps that we ran with our partner school divisions. So that changed a lot. It made things a lot different. It wasn't a huge group, but we did things in manageable numbers. It put more responsibility on our youth workers. There is a lot of responsibility on the youth workers at the best of times, but having to navigate through this COVID minefield and then taking on new steps and being completely new. Frankly, it couldn't have gone better in terms of how they adapted to it and how they took on the extra responsibility and became even more leaders to these youth. So I mentioned earlier about the Alumni Association, there being unintended benefits of something like this, but seeing our youth come forward and just rise to the occasion and be do even better work than we're normally accustomed from them was kind of cool.
Yeah.
We also developed a program because we had plenty of conversations with youth during those March, April, May, those months. And one of the things, aside from being told that they were worried about summer employment, was they just want some connectivity and be part of something positive. So we started a program called WASAC Cares, where we deliver PPE, food hampers, recreation supplies and games to families that are part of the Wasak family in the North End. So we had youth working on that. It was the youth that were the ones that were putting together the packages. It was the youth that were the ones that were delivering it. So that was a great story. And to have the youth be a part of the revival, for lack of a better term, of getting things back to as normal as you can and being able to help out fellow Wasak family members and families that were in need of these services. That was really uplifting. So for us, COVID, like everyone else, it's provided some struggles and roadblocks, but really I couldn't be more pleased by the way our youth banded together, kind of just saw what needed to be done, did everything in a safe, respectful manner, and got our services out to as many people as we could.
That's so huge and so cool to think of, when you think of just a sports organization or a sports team, and you kind of extrapolate all of the benefits of being on a team and being in a community and understanding how that all is tied together. And you kind of, like, I've been playing hockey for 30 years now and been on sports for 30 years. And I feel like there's just a disconnect with people who have never played a team sport or who never really got into it. They don't really understand what you get from it, and they don't really see what you're just describing right now when it comes to just understanding we're all in this together, we're all on the same team, we're all paddling the boat in the same direction. So what are the kids' responses when they get to literally make the world a better place thanks to your organization and thanks to the opportunities that they get within it?
You know what? It's a sense of belonging. That's what I find the most of it, right? Kids are always looking for a sense of belonging. And if you don't give them that path, they'll find that sense of belonging somewhere else, and it could possibly be a negative one. So giving them positive avenues to take part in something, to better their community, to be a part of something bigger than themselves. Like you say, with the sports team, we've partnered with the Winnipeg Jets for years, and we have a Winnipeg Jets WASAC night that comes up every year, and we're proud of it. But as a person who played a lot of sports and follows a lot of sports, I like that team analogy. Like the Jets, they have the Moose and they have their draft picks and their prospects, and everybody they kind of learn at their levels, and then that they graduate, for lack of a better term, to the next level when they're ready to take on that challenge. And we're sort of that same sort of boat. Give everybody responsibility, little bits at a time that they're enough to handle, but allow everybody to kind of find their niche, find their strength. That's one of the coolest things that I ever see at WASAC is you'll see someone, we had a guy named Marcus, and he came on, it was his first year, and he was really fantastic about pumping kids up and getting them ready for things. And he had a love of music. So he all of a sudden just became our DJ. So he was pumping everybody up, and he found his niche. He found that something that was special to him, that made him special, that he could share with others. And there's constant stories with that. Not everybody has the same skill set. And if you're looking at thousands of kids that we have worked through WASAC through the years, there's going to be different levels. Some are going to be great administratively. Some are going to be great public speakers. Some are going to be great one-on-one. And I'm really proud that our organization allows them to find their spot and has a place for them where they can contribute and be valuable and be proud of themselves.
Everybody's got something they're good at, it's such a common thing for kids to think like, oh, I'm not good at anything. And you just got to find it. So what are some ways that you kind of coax that out of kids or try to encourage it? Or what are some ways for maybe parents or anyone that can figure out a way to is it just be patient till they find it? Or is there ways of encouraging, or what have you found in your years?
I think it's trust, really trust and openness. When people come to work for us, I like to think that they know that they're going to be allowed to they're going to make their mistakes like anybody does at their first jobs. I remember some of my first jobs, and I look back and I'm like, whoa, what was I doing? And so they're going to be mistakes, but you don't chastise them for it. You show them a different way of doing it. Explain why this might have or might not have worked, and let them kind of find their path. And then let them. My job as an executive director, I always say, is not to do with anything about the running of the programming or any of that. My job as the executive director is to give our group enough resources so that I never have to say no. Whatever it is they need, whatever program they want to do. We have WASAC is Winnipeg Aboriginal Sport Achievement Center, and sport is definitely a huge part of our organization. But we use it more in terms of, when we began, it was a great recruiting tool because people would come out. But now we've kind of developed ourselves into more of a youth leadership sort of thing. And most of that leadership comes from peer mentoring. So if you're getting a message, not from a boss, for lack of a better term, but from somebody that you look up to in your community, and they're encouraging you, they've got your back, that trust aspect, kids really take towards that, and to allow them to find their niche, to find something that makes them special, and to tell them that the things that they like are important to us too. I think that's huge, and it really allows the kids to grow. It really allows them to see their uniqueness, their gifts, all that sort of stuff. So we really are big into promoting everyone's abilities, whatever it is that is, and we want to push them towards whatever it is that they want to do, and we'll be there to back them up.
And just see themselves being successful, right? See, oh, this person just like me, or it's, my brother's buddy, or whatever it is. And then they're like, oh, he got to work for the Jets, or whatever it is, or got to go to all these things. And it's like, just giving them the chance to see, hey, this could be you. Like, oh, I think
there's something that we go by at WASAC, and my predecessor, I mentioned earlier, Kevin Chief, I've seen him speak about this quite a few times. He talks about, you can't just tell people that they have the chance to do to succeed. You have to show them examples of that success, and by the peer mentoring and showing examples of youth succeeding, they might have similar backgrounds or whatever it is. Show them that example. Show them that with hard work and with support and with the help of your friends and your brothers, sisters, whoever it is, that they can succeed. And when you mentioned that earlier, like you saw your cousin or your brother, that's a big part of WASAC, right? That's a big recruiting tool for us. We get somebody who comes in there and works, and they're like, wait, I've got some friends or a brother or sister that would love to do this too. They're our biggest supporters. They're the ones who trumpet. They go home, they tell their families about how much fun they had working there or being part of the programs, and that just leads to more things. So it's important to, like I say, I try to step out of the way. Whatever direction you guys want to go, I'll be there to support you. So the youth are really the driving forces behind our organization.
That's so cool, and such a great story too. I think you and I we met when Jonathan Taves came to WASAC and sort of was talking about I don't even remember the program right now, but that was a pretty cool event. Do you have other moments or events or like memories from your 10 years that you could share with us? Like what are some of your highlights from the last 10 years?
We've got a ton, but that would probably be top of mind, just as much of a hockey fan as I am personally. So that was the Nourishing Potential event, right. And Jonathan Taves came to the event, and thanks so much to all the Winnipeg Foundation staff for letting us be a part of that. That was just so much fun. But we've had some great events. The Winnipeg Jets Wasak Nights are really cool event. The Winnipeg Jets are a leader in reconciliation and do a lot of great things. And we know from the top on down on that organization that they are committed to this. You're looking back, there's so many cool events, and some of our trips to our northern community partners where we got to go up and have like carnival days for the kids in Shamattawa or Lac Rocher. Those are fun, but that Jonathan Taves one, that definitely stands out because you can just see the excitement of the youth to have at the time, well, he still is, but at the time, I think they might have been coming off a Stanley Cup
And a gold medal. Yeah. Like
yeah,
everything.
and he comes to the north end of Winnipeg and provides interest and provides his support to a program that benefits them. I think that was one of the top ones.
So 10 years ago, when you first took this job, how did it differ from what the actual job became and is, and versus what you thought when you first stepped into the role?
I'd been there for a couple of years, and Kevin Chief it's tough to follow in his footsteps, for one. If any of you know Kevin, he's a charismatic, amazing leader that has bounds of energy. So I was like, okay, I've got to follow this. Great. But no, I kind of knew when I came on, Kevin had asked me to come on. I knew of the organization, obviously, because I had done some work there, and my sister was working there too. So I had a firsthand knowledge of what it was like. And then when you even get there on a day-to-day basis, just seeing the enthusiasm and all that. So what we've tried to do is we grow bit by bit, but we don't want to overstep our growth. We don't want to reach too much. Grow in a way that you're capable of doing it. Grow in a way that you hit the ground running. So basically, we've done that. There's been little offshoots of different programs that we run. Again, most of the time, it's at the behest of the youth leaders. So it's just incremental growth, getting stronger, getting better at what you do. We've got an amazing team that has been long-term there.
That's huge.
I think that's one of the amazing things about our organization is that there's very little turnover because people love it. And I like to think that we treat our employees well and have their backs. And I think a testament to that is how many are amazing people that we get to work with. So every day you go into the office and we're sitting there, we're laughing, we're chuckling, we're finding different ways. And like, it's just an open atmosphere. So there's not much has changed really in the 10 years. It's always been that way.
It's just a little bigger now.
And it's not even that crazy much bigger. It's just little bits of growth that aren't overwhelming. When you do start out a new project or whatever, there's hesitancy of how it's going to look. But if you go in with an open attitude and not pigeonhole it into a way that you think it should be, and let it grow organically, it kind of works out. Yeah. So whenever we've tried something new, I think everything that we've tried is still going on. So we've got a pretty good track record of success on that.
No kidding. That's huge. So, well, what's next then? Because I mean, we're kind of, maybe there's a light at the end of the tunnel when it comes to all this COVID stuff, but what are you guys planning for the next, 6 months to a year, or what are you seeing on your end, and what's the plan for the next little bit?
The big thing that we're looking forward to is more in contact with our youth participants. We've been doing a lot of stuff through Zoom, and we've been doing smaller gatherings, but that doesn't quite replicate what it's like when you have 30 kids all pumped up to be in the same room, right? So again, we'll see how the pandemic, whatever restrictions there are, and we'll abide by all those, because first and foremost, the safety of our youth and our employees is most important. But once those restrictions are eased up and we've got a little bit of a handle on COVID here, it'll be nice just to see faces more often. Yeah. And from there, business as usual, basically providing programming for youth that's beneficial to them, whether it be educational, cultural, sport, whatever it is that they choose to do, we'll be there for that. So we look forward to doing it in person as opposed to via Zoom or social media.
Yeah, it seems like a common thread is not, people coming in and being like, here's the program, here's what you're going to do it, and we'll tell you what's what. You're kind of like, hey, what do you guys need? What do you want? What do you need? What do you want to experience? And then you try to kind of tailor the programming that way. And that seems to be the way, the better way of doing things, based on maybe an older model of someone kind of swooping in and saying, you got problems, here's how you solve them. And it seems like you're kind of you allow the kids to figure out what they need as opposed to telling them what they need.
Yeah, you know what? Like I'm in my mid 40s now, and I really don't have a lot of grip of what a 16-year-old, what's going to be, what's really going to invigorate them or whatever. We mentioned earlier before this recording began just how inept I am technology. So a lot of that stuff goes over my head. But like I mentioned, my job is to make sure that they have the resources that they need. And a lot of our programming is done because the programmer in person has an idea and has a love of that particular subject. We have a land-based thing that we just developed last year in the summer, and we're really going to expand that this year because our programmer in that situation just really is knowledgeable about the fact. The kids love it. So for me, I have some knowledge of that stuff, but not an expertise by any means. So really, the direction is from the kids and the leaders that are doing that, because it's something that is near and dear to them. And my job is just, if it's positive programming, I'm going to be all for it.
That's so cool. I love it. Well, Trevor, at the end of our time together, we do a little segment with every guest called Just Because, where it's 7 questions all about the causes you care about and why. And you want to go through them with me?
Sure.
All right. Question 1, what is the very first cause you ever remember caring about, even as a kid?
As a kid? Wow, I'm going to have to say pass on that, Family Feud style.
Okay.
Think about it in my head while I'm doing that.
Well, question 2 then. You might be able to get this one. If money, politics, and logistics were no issue at all for you, you could just snap your fingers and something would happen in support of your cause, what would you do? What would you do for WASAC or for Winnipeg or for anything?
I think it would allow us to expand in terms of, again, on a manageable growth, to be able to have more leaders work for us, to be able to reach more kids, to be able to reach more communities in Manitoba. Travel to remote communities sometimes provides a huge barrier in terms of costs for it. So that would be mine, be able to get more kids to be able to reach WASAC programming.
Yeah, for sure. It's huge. There's got to be such a huge desire for people to want to sort of be in the tent with you guys because of how awesome it is. Like, yeah, it's got to be tough.
So.
Question 3, what's the biggest misunderstanding or stigma about your cause?
I think everyone thinks we're a sport organization. And that's how we did start our organization. But sport is definitely a big part of what we do, but we do it more recreational. It's sport for social development, for lack of a better phrase. Whereas if you're looking at somebody that comes to our program to go on to the national games or the North American Indigenous Games or the Olympics, that's more the purview of the Manitoba Aboriginal Sport and Recreation Council. So whenever anybody talks to us, they see sport in the name and thinks we're primarily a sport organization. Whereas I think more so we're more about leadership development.
Right. Yeah. Cool. Makes sense for sure. Question 4, what's a time in your life where you had to pivot because plan A wasn't working out, so you had to switch over to plan B?
COVID.
Yeah, that's a huge one.
We had big plans for the summer of what we're going to be doing, and we had to switch everything, stop everything at a standstill. We couldn't go into any schools to recruit kids, so that definitely normally April, May, June is the time when we send out our youth WASAC leaders into the schools and recruit all of these kids for our programs. We couldn't do that last year, so we had to pivot. Do a lot of recruiting through social media, via telephone, old lists. So we got it done. We had a lot of kids come through our camp doors, just not all at once.
Right.
So that was a huge pivot.
No kidding. Yeah, that's we made up these questions before COVID. Like I've been doing the podcast for longer than a year, obviously. So the questions before COVID were like, when I went back to college or whatever. But now everyone's answer is like, well, about a year ago during COVID when everything changed. So yeah, maybe we need to adjust that question, but great answer. Question 5, what's the best piece of advice that you've ever been given in your life?
Best piece of advice is don't sweat the small stuff. There's stuff that could take you off of your day's path at a moment's notice if you allow it to. And the only thing that I like to say is that I feel how I want to feel. I'm in charge of how I want to feel about something. If I allow myself to get angry or it takes me out of what I'm doing productively. I don't have time for it. So let's try to. And I'm not saying that if somebody has a serious problem or something like that, that I'm not. But little details and stuff like that, don't allow it to ruin your day, and don't get too worked up about them. And just find ways to get around that and work together to make it an improvement.
I find myself phrasing that sentiment slightly like. Basically, you can't control what happens in the world, but you can't control. Oh, You can't control what happens in the world, but you can control how you respond to it, and that's
exactly.
Sounds like
that's what I was
saying.
looking at.
Yeah,
that's what I was looking for there in terms of that, but I wasn't so eloquent.
No, you're great. It's beautiful. Question 6, along the same lines of advice, what advice would you give your 10-year-old self if you could look back and talk to him right now?
10-year-old self, enjoy being 10 years old and being able to run around and play and not be have creaky bones. I went out last week to a golf simulator. So I hadn't golfed, I guess, since early October. And I really love to golf, and I love to get out and do stuff. And I find more and more the bones start really hurting after that. So at 10 years old, I can't imagine what it's like to wake up and be able to run a mile. Like, no rest, nothing,
no
just
stretching.
Yeah,
and you are preaching to the choir right now. I'm 35, and yeah, my girlfriend and I just went out and just played catch for about half an hour a couple days ago because it was nice out, and my shins hurt. I was like, why are my shins hurting? My shins have never hurt before, and I'm like, oh, this is not going to get better with age, is it? I'm just going to get continually in more pain.
I can't play catch anymore. I tore my rotator cuff, so it's just like, yeah, all underhand for me.
There you go. Do we want to skip back to the first cause you ever remember caring about back in the day? Question 1.
I think a lot of it had to do with children in care. I know I've got some relatives of mine that work predominantly in that field and are big advocates for helping out kids in care. And that was something that piqued my interest. And as an Indigenous person, you see it very prevalent. And I think that was something like I was lucky to have grown up in a family with both my mom and dad being there and being supportive. And some youth aren't given that same circumstance. So anything that we can do to make that better, easier, and better for the kid involved, I think that's probably near and dear to my heart back then and near and dear to my heart now.
Beautifully said. Wonderful. The last question is often the hardest one, but question 7 is, what do you want to be remembered for?
As a supporter, really. I don't, I'm not the architect of any sort of great program or plan or anything like that. I've mentioned it countless times. My job is just to support our amazing staff and what they do. And I think the best compliment I could be given from my staff who mean the world to me is that they were never afraid to come to me with an idea or whatever it was without me being open and supportive to helping them. I think that's my role, is just to be able to, I don't want to be ever in a position to say no to our amazing team.
Beautiful. Well, it's always great talking to you. It's always good vibes whenever we get to cross paths. Hopefully we can do it in person soon. So wasac.info is your website. Where else can people find information about WASAC?
.ca.
Oh, okay.
wasac.ca.
Okay.
Yeah, we have wasac.ca. There's a Facebook thing. I can't remember the handle on it right now, but I imagine it has something to do with WASAC. We do have WASA at Wasak News is our Twitter handle.
Cool.
And no, I just wanted to say too, like the Winnipeg Foundation, we mentioned earlier the stabilization grants and how important they are to organizations like ours, particularly Indigenous organizations that were fearful with COVID of what was going on and how their program would be influenced by that. But and you yourself, Carrie Ryan, Noah Ehrenberg, Anna Tizaj, Bridget DePop, Megan Tate, anyone, whenever we've had a question, the Winnipeg Foundation has been for us, and that stems from Rick Frost and his amazing leadership. And congratulations to him on his retirement. And we're very proud to look forward to working with Sky Bridges as well. And I can't say enough about how much you and the Winnipeg Foundation and your group has helped us.
That's my pleasure. WASAC is awesome. So wasac.ca if you want to learn more information. Trevor LaForte, Executive Director of the Winnipeg Aboriginal Sport Achievement Center, aka WASAC. Thank you for being on the podcast. Hopefully we'll see you soon in person at some cool event or something, but take care of yourself.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Nolan.